So Jimmy Jones is someone I made up right before I came down here. He is someone who we've decided we need to pay particular attention to. So he's not going to be in the general part of AIMsWeb. We're going to put him in the progress monitoring. And we're going to keep it simple here, and we're going to say what we're going to progress monitor Jimmy on is oral reading fluency. So I'm going to show you today how you would put someone in, how you would set up a schedule for progress monitoring, okay? Actually, let me show you manage students. So, we're going to add a female student too. And her name is going to be Jill Jones. And we'll say she's in 2nd grade. We'll also say she's in special ed. She's not an English language learner. She's female. We're not sure of her ethnicity. And we're going to add her. Okay, so I went to a tab. If I jump back one screen, it would be a tab called Manage Students, and I'm adding her here. So, add. Now I'm going to go to Jill Jones, and I'm going to click on her here, and I'm going to click on Add PM. What's PM stand for? Progress Monitor. Good. So, so I'll show you two examples. This one, I'm going to show you the wizard that will just walk you right through this. And then the other one, I'm going to show you, I'll go back to Jimmy Jones and show you someone who was already in the system and show you how to walk through it without the wizard. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is decide what measure we're going to progress monitor him with, or we're talking about Jill, her with. Okay, so once again, I can't just blast through all this without knowing you guys have some context, or it's not going to make this much sense. What would have happened for Jill to be getting put into a progress monitoring schedule? What's happened in her school life, more than likely?
There's been some kind of evaluation to indicate that she's behind in some area or another.
Okay.
Or multiple areas.
Okay. Within an RTI framework, that would have been done what I described, where we assess all kids in the school. So let's pretend it's the fall of her 2nd grade year. She's never really been that far behind, but she seems pretty far behind in reading. So based on this school-wide assessment, so we're going to make kind of a conservative decision, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to Jill, because she was always a little borderline, but now she's just really dropped behind. So we want to pay a lot of attention to her. Okay, and we're going to give her some intervention, but we don't want to just hope our intervention works. We're going to actually assess her regularly with these simple, doable assessments. Okay, so I selected reading. So this is just the running list of all the measures you could use. One bummer about AIMsWeb, I'll tell you right up front, is that for every skill you would assess a kid on, you have to go through this process again. So say you're a special ed teacher, and a lot of your kids will need some help in, reading, writing, and math, very standard. You would have to set up a schedule for each one of those skills. You couldn't just go through here and click reading, writing, and math, and it would set it all up. I would think someday, but
you can only check one box at a time.
Yeah, yeah, and they should be able to figure out a way to split it, so you could go through and do all this at once and split it. But unless they've done it recently, it hasn't happened. But it makes sense because you need the different schedules because you set different goals for the different skills. But there is a redundancy to it. So I clicked on reading. which is oral reading fluency, but here, just for the sake of some variation here, I'm going to go to Dibbles, oral reading fluency. I'm going to hit next. How often are we going to progress monitor her? I'm not going to mess with the dates here. Well, we wouldn't even get, but we're going to plan on working with her from now until the end of the year. We're going to assess her every 2 weeks. And we're going to do those assessments on Wednesday. And then we want to review, I would actually say that is not often enough, but we're going to put that in there. Every 8 weeks. You have chosen to exclude summer months. So there's a little idiosyncrasy, because a lot of places go to school later than that. Shoot, what did I just do? Back one. Okay. So we'll just go till May 31st. It said you can't go into June. You can only go to June 1st. So we'll save that. Interesting. I don't know why. I wonder if I maybe added Jill Jones once before. Okay, so here she is now in our system. So you could view this as like your caseload, right? Once again, for this class you're working with one student. If you're a special ed teacher, you may have, 15 different kids with 3 different skills. So you can suddenly see how this may look really complicated, but it's all nice and organized for you, okay? So we've selected a measure for Jill. This is her schedule every 2 weeks on Monday and Friday. I don't know, how did that just happen? Let's change that. Every 2 weeks on Wednesday. I don't know what I did before, but this is what I meant to do. Okay, now this is what I don't really want to get into this week because it gets a little complicated, and I'm going to go for a while. Survey level assessment is one way that you can establish where to start your student, where to assess the student. Okay, and basically Jill is a 2nd grader, so what I would do with Jill is what you want to do is assess at her grade level and down at least a couple of grades, and I'll show you later, show you next week, but it shows you like where to assess her. It's the most technical thing about all of this, but it's good to know. And I'll show you on another, I'm just going to make this up quick, and I'm going to go 16 words read, 5 airs. Let's go 25 and 4 air. Oops, 47 airs. That'd be rough. Way to go. There's Jill. And then 32. Are those logical scores? I mean, you don't have a frame of reference for that, but you see how theoretically it would be more difficult for her for grades above her, theoretically easier for grades below her. I'm totally shooting in the dark here. I don't know what this is going to tell me, but it's going to tell me how, where to assess her.